Hello and welcome to Pick 3 DST, where I give you 3 defenses I like, 1 defense I'm fading, and 1 defense I'm streaming ahead of Week 13 of the NFL season. As a reminder, these are not my full weekly DST rankings. If you want to check those out, you can click the link below, which will take you to the rankings that I'll update as the week goes on. We get weather concerns and injury updates and things of that nature. As a reminder, it is Thanksgiving week, so obviously we have plenty of games on Thursday and on Friday, so we got to make sure we really check those rankings ahead of that, and that's going to lock in a lot of defense rankings before Sunday, but we're going to do our best to update those rankings throughout the entire week. We're going to start this video, as always, with our accountability check in what was an overall pretty solid week for us in our defense picks. The defense, we faded the Pittsburgh Steelers, let up 31 points against the Bears, but they did recover a fumble in the end zone for a touchdown, and that helped them score 10 points, so that wasn't exactly a hit. And then our stud defense, the Seattle Seahawks, scored just 4 points in a slam dunk matchup against the Titans, so that was disappointing. However, our sleeper defense, the Bears, put up a solid 7 points. Our solid defense, the Ravens, put up 11 points. And then our streaming defense, the New Orleans Saints, who were 2% rostered coming into the week, put up 11 points and finished tied as the 7th ranked defense. And so that was a really nice hit, and we'll try to keep those going heading into Week 13. My sleeper defense for the week is the Tampa Bay Bucs. Consensus has them at 13th, but I have them up at 5th on the week. Now, the Bucs defense has struggled over the last month, but we have to keep in mind they played only 3 games over the last month, and that was against the Bills, the Rams, and the Patriots. So that context is really important when you look at their overall production as a defense. The Cardinals matchup is not nearly as difficult as those 3. Over the last 2 months, the Bucs are averaging 7 fantasy points per game as a defense. They ranked 4th in the NFL in turnover rate. Now, the Cardinals, over the last month, allow 11.3 fantasy points per game to opposing defenses. That's even with Jacoby Brissett looking pretty good under center. Now, they may get Marvin Harrison back this week, and Michael Wilson has emerged, but this Cardinals matchup is still an above-average one for a defense that was looking really solid before facing 3 of the better offenses in the league, and so I think the Bucs could push for a top 5 finish this week. My solid defense this week is the Houston Texans. Consensus has them at 8th, and I have them up at 2nd on the week. Now, I know it's not a shocker to say that I think the Texans are a good defense. However, I don't know that we're always playing them as such in fantasy. They were dropped in a lot of leagues last week heading into their game against the bye. They were outside of the top 10 in consensus rankings. I had them ranked 6th, and they delivered against Josh Allen and the Bills on Thursday night. At this point in the season, I think there are about 4 or 5 defenses that you just can't take out of your lineup, and the Texans are certainly one of them. They are far and away the best defense in fantasy on the year. Over the last 2 months, they ranked 1st in the NFL in EPA per play allowed. That's expected points added per play allowed. They're 2nd in opponent scoring rate. They're 2nd in turnover rate. They're 2nd in conversion rate allowed. And they're 4th in pressure rate. That has led to 11.4 fantasy points per game over the last 2 months. That's just not a unit you bench. And I know they're going up against the Colts. And the Colts have been a really good offense this year. However, Daniel Jones has started to regress over the last month, and we've seen the Colts give up 9.7 fantasy points per game to opposing defenses over the last month, thanks to 8 turnovers and 12 sacks allowed. So there are some flaws in this Colts offense that I think the Texans defense can exploit, and I am not taking the Texans out of my lineup right now. Before I get to my stud defense of the week, pause this video, comment below, let me know which defense you're playing this week, or ask me any start-sit questions, and I'll get to those as the week goes on. My stud defense of the week is the Los Angeles Rams. Consensus has them at 4th, but I have them up at 1st on the week, heading into a matchup against the Carolina Panthers. Bryce Young went from having a career-high passing yards to throwing 2 interceptions and passing for just 169 yards in a really disappointing game on Monday night against the 49ers. This Panthers offense is just not really an offense that we can trust, and the Rams defense is certainly one that we can trust. I think them plus the Texans are units that we don't really even want to take out of our lineup. The Rams on the season averaged the 2nd most fantasy points in the NFL. Over the last 2 months, they ranked 1st in the NFL in opponent scoring rate, 3rd in turnover rate, 3rd in EPA per play allowed, 8th in conversion rate, and 9th in pressure rate, and that has led to 10.1 fantasy points per game. They are a tremendous unit going up against an offense that I think is just average, and so I love the Rams as a play this week. The defense I'm fading for this week is the Baltimore Ravens. Consensus has them at 10th, but I have them down at 17th on the week. Now, I have come around on the Ravens defense. They've played really well over the last few weeks. They're averaging 9.4 fantasy points per game over the last 2 months, and obviously we had them as one of our picks last week, so this is not really a knock on the Ravens as a defense. It's just that this matchup is not really as good as it might have appeared a couple weeks ago. The Bengals look set to get back Joe Burrow for this game on Thursday night, and Jamar Chase is coming off of his suspension. So even though we know that T. Higgins is going to miss this game with a concussion, the Bengals offense gets that boost with both Chase and Burrow back, and Burrow has really lit up the Ravens over the last couple of seasons. In addition to that, the Ravens suffered some key injuries on defense on Sunday, headlined by Kyle Hamilton leaving the game at the end of the game. Now, Coach John Harbaugh has said that Hamilton has a chance to play on Thursday, but it sounds like even if he does play, he's going to not be at 100%, and he is a crucial aspect of this Ravens defense. The Ravens also lost 2 defensive tackles, Taven Bryan and Travis Jones, to injury on Sunday, so they're going to be banged up against a Bengals team that's getting 2 of their best players back, and so I really don't love this play this week. Lastly, we'll discuss my streamer of the week, which is the Miami Dolphins. Consensus has them ranked 12th, and I have them ranked 7th. And the Dolphins are just 3% rostered right now in Yahoo formats. They get a really good matchup against the Saints, and the Dolphins have been a surprisingly good defense of late. Over the last 2 months, they rank 11th in pressure rate, 11th in conversion rate allowed, and 12th in opponent scoring rate. Yes, that's only led to 6 fantasy points per game, but the Saints give up 10 fantasy points per game over the last month. The Dolphins are coming off a bye, and the Saints are not going to have Alvin Kamara in this game, and that is just a huge, huge loss for them. We saw a pretty mediocre or a really inconsistent Falcons defense put up 14 fantasy points against the Saints last week, and so I think this Dolphins defense is a good bet for a top 10 play this week. That's going to do it for this week of Pick 3 DST. As a reminder, click the link below to get the rankings, which I'll update as the week goes on. Don't forget to like and subscribe to get Pick 3 DST every week, plus the rest of our football content and fantasy football content over at NBC Sports. Hope everybody has a phenomenal Thanksgiving, and good luck on Sunday.